So we're rounding up chapter 2 of positive economics. We're going to specialization, division of labor. I want to talk about specialization. It's the breaking down of specialization is the concentration of an individual or firm or country in one aspect of production. And for division of labor, it is masterminded by Adam Smith in his book, which was published in 1776, titled The Wealth of Nations. So division of labor is defined as the breaking down of production process into different stages, and each stage is being performed by different people. Now let's read further for more explanation. Imagine a bank employee who wants to produce their own car from scratch in order to get to work. Many individuals have natural talent as well as skills that have been studied and perfected. If we as individuals, consumers, don't want to produce or supply all that we require, we'll often purchase from those who specialize in a particular product or service that we need or want. So the brain behind specialization and division of labor is that there are some people, there are some individuals that specialize on certain aspect of production. And for the fact that we cannot produce them, it means we simply have to buy from them. So that means there are some people who do have the skills and they have perfected it for the purpose of selling. So for we that we don't have the skills, we need to buy from them. Similarly, specialization is the production of a few goods by an individual or country in cooperation with others so that a range of goods can be made. The principle underlying the division of labor was set out by Adam Smith in his book, Wealth of Nations, published in 1776. Smith describes how even making a half pay in a factory can be divided into 18 separate tasks undertaken by different workers specializing in those tasks. He suggested that one worker might produce 20 paints a day if he were to complete the entire process by himself. But 10 workers specializing in a variety of tasks could make an estimated 48,000 paints. So it simply means that division of labor, which was masterminded by Adam Smith, figure out that with division of labor, more productivity can increase compared to individuals doing the own tasks themselves. So what are the advantages of division of labor? There are advantages and disadvantages to specialization, but overall, an economy can increase output if firms specialize. So we're going to start with the advantages of division of labor. The first one, specialization allows workers to gain skills in a narrow range of tasks. These skills allow a worker to be far more productive than if one worker was doing all the jobs him or herself. With division of labor, it allows individuals to concentrate on one aspect of production. And because they concentrate on one aspect of production, it allows them to do better and to be more faster, which means it's possible that they increase their productivity. Two, time is saved because workers are not changing from one task to another or moving from one place to another. Time is saved here. How? Because that individual does not have to move from one place to another, does not have to change from one task to another. The individual understands his or her routine and he continues to do the same routine without thinking about, oh, I have to finish one task for another task. He or she is going to continue to concentrate on one aspect of the task, and that saves time. Three, workers can specialize in the jobs to which they are best suited. Because it's division of labor, certain individuals will be assigned the specific job that they know how to do best, and that will also bring about job satisfaction. The next one, training costs are reduced if workers are trained in only a few tasks and skills. The cost of training workers will reduce. Expense on training workers will reduce because it is just on a specific task. So it simply means training workers for one aspect of a task is less expensive compared to training workers on different aspects of tasks. And the last one, specialization leads to more efficient production, which in turn helps to tackle the problem of scarcity, because if resources are used more efficiently, more output can be produced per unit of input used. Specialization brings about efficiency, and when there's efficiency, it means resources would not be wasted, and the resources are already scarce, so scarce resources will be better used with specialization. So that takes us to disadvantages of specialization. One, what are the disadvantages of specialization? One, if jobs are divided up too much, the work becomes monotonous. Workers may feel alienated and lose interest in their work. If workers continue to do the same job, it simply means it becomes monotonous for them. They feel bored about it, and the job might not interest them anymore because they continue to do the same thing every now and then. Two, workers may underestimate the role that others play in the economy. This could lead to social conflict over the distribution of income between workers, managers, and owners of firms. This conflict can lead to low output, strikes, and poor communication. Because there is division of labor, an individual specializing on one aspect might think he or she is doing more than others on specific tasks. So this means they might be underestimating the tasks of other people. And as a result of that, they might feel that they are being underpaid. And if they feel that they are being underpaid, that might reduce output or bring about poor communication and conflicts within the organization. The last one, highly specialized workers may be unable to find alternative work in the event of a downturn in the economy, and retraining may be impossible for older workers. So the last point here is that because they might be over-specialized. Because they continue to do one aspect or they continue to perform specific tasks, it might be difficult for them to be flexible. They become rigid to know other aspects of tasks, and that might bring about rigidity and it might bring about, loss of job. So that takes us to specialization between countries and regions. Just as individuals and firms specialize, concentration can also occur between countries. Example given: Japan producing cars, an island making butter and both trading with each other. Indeed, regions in the country can also specialize. Pharmaceuticals in Cork, financial services in Dublin, and technology companies in Silicon Valley in the US. So specialization can also take place between countries, can also take place between regions. How do we decide what to specialize in? So to make decisions about specialization, it needs a cost-benefit analysis. And that takes us to cost-benefit analysis. For cost-benefit analysis, it simply means a process that considers all costs and all benefits when deciding on the course of action. So we're simply talking about making a decision. So in the course of making that decision, it is important to check, to compare and contrast the cost of making that decision and the benefits in there when you make such decision. For example, an individual would compare the benefit of taking an evening course to the cost of educational program. So an individual might compare the cost, the amount he or she has to spend on an evening course when compared to an educational program before making a decision about choosing either educational program or the evening course. A business would compare the benefit of a new customer against the cost of digital marketing campaign. So an individual would consider choosing, finding a way to attract more customers and the cost of, digital marketing. So an individual would make a decision about, making advertisement or digital campaign to increase customer base. A government would compare the benefit of reduced commuter time versus the cost of building a new motorway. So a government would also put into consideration when making decisions a policy such as this. An NGO would compare the benefit of new funding against the cost of the time it takes to fill out the forms and go through the evaluation process. So whatever decision we make, we need to put into consideration the cost and benefit of such decision. So that takes us to private costs and benefits. In the free market, decisions are made on the calculation of private costs and benefits. Private cost is the cost of an activity to an individual firm. For example, the construction company that builds and operates a new airport or wind turbine will be able to calculate the financial cost of the project. It will also be able to calculate the potential revenue to be earned. These are private benefits. If the private benefit exceeds private cost, then the company will build the airport or wind turbine. So there's private cost and private benefit. The private cost is the cost to that individual on the activity it does. And the private benefit is the benefit to that individual for making such decision. Then there's externality. Why is there externality? There are situations where externality exists. In essence, unintended effects on third parties. These costs or benefits are unlikely to be taken into account by a private sector. There's externality when it affects third party. And when it affects third party, it simply means that the private sector will not put into consideration the cost and benefit of the third party. So what are those externalities? We have private cost of building an airport, externalities of building an airport. The private cost of building an airport is the construction cost for the company that wants to build the airport. The staff operating cost is a private cost. Professional fees is also a private cost. But externalities, the spillover of such decision for construction costs to be noise and air pollution to those living nearby. For staff operating costs, disfigurement of the landscape. So the landscape will change. Professional fees, risk of accidents to those living in that area. So these are the costs and benefits of making a decision. So how the government use cost-benefit analysis? Cost-benefit analysis is a highly effective method of decision-making as it takes into account all the efforts and costs of taking action before allocating the resources based on the most beneficial outcome. For cost and benefit analysis, government uses it to make a decision. And if they are going to make the decision, it simply means they figure out that resources will be best used on the most beneficial outcome. They won't make decisions if the cost exceeds the benefits. So what are the stages in cost benefit analysis? We have the private and external costs and benefits are identified. So the first stage when we are making analysis on cost benefit analysis is to check, to figure out or to identify the private and the external costs. The private cost, the external cost, the private benefit and the external benefits of the action. The monetary value that is placed on this cost and value. So as soon as that is on, the next stage is to put on the figure that has to be spent on both cost and benefit. The next one is the net cost or benefit of the action. So what is the total amount that has to be spent on that action? And lastly, generally, if there's a net cost, the project will not go ahead, but if there's a net benefit, it will. So at the end of it all, the net benefit must exceed the net cost if the business has to make decisions, or if the government or if the business or government have to make decisions about the project. Micro and macroeconomics. Micro is a Greek word for small, while macro is a Greek word for large. Microeconomics studies the economic behavior of individuals, households, and firms, or the small part of the economy, which is individual market for goods and services, or the market for labor and housing. Lots of microeconomic decisions are based on prices, such as consumers buying more vegetables. If the price falls, or more people trying to find work in IT, wages in the industry rise. Thus, microeconomics is also referred to as price theory. So we have microeconomics, which studies about the individual market. And for macro studies the entire or the large economy. That's the total amount of goods and services produced in the country, or price and employment levels in the entire economy. Looks at aggregates or totals, which is aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Micro is about demand and supply, while macro is about aggregate demand and aggregate supply. What does microeconomics study? How individuals spend their income, the output of a single firm. That is demand and supply. For macroeconomics, the consumption pattern of the whole economy, the total production in the economy. So micro and macroeconomics are not independent of each other. Individual decisions feed into demand and supply in different markets. Aggregate or total economic activity, which is macro, is dependent on what happens in all these different markets. So that ends an economy, which is chapter 2. The next class we're going to go into chapter 3, which is economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Thank you.